what you say about your neighbors and friends, and just in case it gets picked up, okay? You know how it is with those open mics and not knowing. And they are pretty sensitive, so just to let you know. You don't have to be quiet, you can talk. It's just, know that. We're actually streaming now, and we'll start the meeting in just a few minutes. We start no meeting before it's time. Okay, I will call the Southbury Board of Selectmen regular meeting November 3rd, 2022 in room 205 to order at 7 p.m. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up is public comment, limited to 2 minutes. If there's any public comment, would you please state your first name, last name, and your address for the record? So if there's any public comment, would please come up.
So good evening, Jerry Leventhal, Heritage Village. And as Yogi Berra said, seems like deja vu all over again. So let me just start by thanking the town, because we had the good fortune of having Sergeant Grillo present to about 120 residents Monday. And very clearly, as you probably know, the town is excellently, is that the word, served by Sergeant Grillo as well as the police department. And we fully support moving forward in any way possible to continue to structure needed positions in the police department. However, what I'm here about tonight is the transfer station and its impact on the village. As we did some diligence on our end, our vendor wants $150,000 more per year. And we are trying to resist it, but we don't have a whole lot of legal ground to do that. We also pretty sure that when the town enacted this ordinance, it was with an understanding that it wouldn't impact anybody too strong financially. Well, it's hitting us pretty hard. So we're looking to work with the town, like we're doing on the CRO and other matters, to try to look at options that accomplish the town's needs and addresses the 5,000 residents in Heritage Village. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fadwa Najami and I'm a Southbury resident. I'm here tonight to speak about the Rusty Can here in Southbury, and by Rusty Can, I am talking about our transfer station. I've been a tax-paying resident since 1993, and only this past year did I find out that the town never charged tipping fees to commercial haulers. The idea, I was told, was that the Southbury residents would get a discount on their trash collection fees. When I found out this information, I personally called USA Hauling in Oak Ridge, and I pretended I was from Watertown, Oxford, Woodbury, Naugatuck, and Southbury. You can call them 15 times because they have that many people answering the phones. And this charge was the same. So we're not getting a break. We never did get a break. Because back in 1994, I couldn't afford to pay to have my garbage picked up. And I started bringing my garbage to the transfer station to myself. correct me if I'm wrong, but if my understanding is that since Heritage Village haulers now have to pay tipping fees elsewhere, that Heritage Village is being charged more for their trash hauling, which I understand from Jerry is happening. And instead of kicking this rusty can down the road again, let's figure out how we can charge these commercial haulers a fair price without having Southbury residents subsidize Heritage Village tipping fees. I am not willing to do that. I did it without my knowledge for all these years. I'm not willing to do it again. But at the same time, I understand their dilemma, because $150,000 divided by 5,000 residents is a lot of money. So we have to figure out a way, and also to keep track of it. We don't have a weigh station. We don't have a computer system. We don't have running water. We don't have an indoor toilet. I'm wondering if this transfer station is even OSHA compliant. Can they send out bills? How is that going to happen? Who's going to keep track of which hauler comes and which truck comes, and how do they know it's from Southbury? And then I have to say, you know what? I've been dumping my garbage for free since 1994. Hey, look, I'm willing to pay $50 a year for a permit. There's no reason why I shouldn't. Okay? Yes, our taxes are high, but I don't think they're unreasonable in this town. And I'd be willing to pay $50 to dump my household trash. I'm not talking about wood and metal and all that extra stuff. I pay extra for that. I'm okay with it. But this has been going on long enough. There was a wonderful presentation
Ma'am,
given.
It is 2 minutes.
Okay,
We've
I'm
gone
sorry.
way- Could you send that to the board, please?
Pardon?
Can you send that to the board?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Isabel Burke. I live in Heritage Village. I'm a Southbury resident. I live in Southbury. I produce my garbage in Southbury. And up until now, my garbage has been disposed of in Southbury, as I would expect. I'm kind of shocked to discover that even though I pay my taxes, suddenly there's a brand new fee in town. And what we know about fees is they never go down. Once they are assessed, they only go in one direction. And many of us are on fixed incomes. And again, we live here, the garbage comes from here. We would like, please, to have the privilege of our garbage being disposed of in the town where we live, where we patronize businesses, and where we support the people who work for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Brody. I'm also a Heritage Village resident, and I want to speak in support of what Fadwa Najami was saying about having equitable sharing of both the costs and the benefits of this town facility. I gather that there is a gap between the revenues realized in taxes and the cost of having the transfer station serve all of the residents and businesses within our town. I think that study needs to be done to figure out what rate of charging needs to be done to fill that gap. I really want to advocate very strongly for a weigh station so that people can be charged based on how much they're dumping. I think that might help to solve the problem of commercial haulers dumping here. If they're dumping large loads, they should pay more, especially if some of their load is coming from out of town. There's a lot of logistics to work into this, but I think the main thing is this is a facility for our town, the people who live here, the people whose businesses are located here. The cost of maintaining and operating it should be supported by the people who use it and receive its benefits. And I'm sure there's an equitable way to do that. Many thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the regular agenda. Thank you. First up is announcements and correspondence that you have in front of you.
Jeff, I'd like to make a motion to add the transfer station to new business, please.
Motion is made. I'm not hearing a
I'll
second.
second that.
John?
Second that, please.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. I guess speak up. Made and seconded to add under new business discussion on the garbage. Justin, is that it?
I just said the transfer station.
On the transfer station, okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of adding it to the under new business, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, and it'll be added to new business. Next up is the consent agenda. Have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Can I get a second? Justin?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. Minutes of October 20th, 2022, regular meeting. Can I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Can I have a second, John? John will second it. Very good. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as written, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. Bids and procurements, hydro seeding.
Motion to approve?
Can I have a second?
Second.
Seconded? Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
signify- Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, and it carries. Under unfinished business, the town pool discussion. We've reached out to the survey company. One of the things I wanted to look into doing was, should there be informational meetings before a survey or after a survey? I want to get there, and they've not responded yet, so we'll be working on that and working towards getting together how we're going to move forward with that in discussions. And one of the things I just want to let you know, I'm also looking at, if you want to take a look at this thing called a Mirtha liner, Mirtha pool. It's a stainless steel. I have some pieces in my office. They asked to talk to me. And it's stainless steel panels and interesting concept. One of the things we want to be careful or we're going to need to find out is what the long-term maintenance of a pool will be. Is if you have people have gunite pools, there is a maintenance that has to go along with it. And when we look at this, that may be a material that we will consider as part of the bid project for long-term cost. You know, it's a pretty interesting product, so we'll take a look at that. So we're still working on that. Any questions on the pool? Okay, all right. Next up in their new business, discussion on the transfer station. Justin?
Well, obviously, we've heard, again, and it's been filtering around for a couple weeks that, as I said in my email to you guys this week, I thought that we were voting on something that was not going to change anybody's bills, and obviously. Please talk into your mic. Sure, sorry. I was under the impression that the action we took in regards to closing the transfer station to commercial haulers would not affect anybody's rates. Obviously, we've heard that big effect on Heritage Village. I know my rates went up roughly 30 days later, and as did a number of people that I chat with on a regular basis. So I'm not sure exactly, what the long-term fix is, but maybe the short-term fix is to allow them to continue to dump until we figure out, a long-term solution.
Okay, anybody else?
I'll just jump in. Back on June 2nd, when we were talking about this, and Ms. Lukowski came in and gave us a presentation about, what we heard here tonight, that we shopped around, we saw that we were being charged the same as other communities and not taking advantage of our our services at the town transfer station. And I think I said that night, and just repeat it again, that I just thought that it was kind of odd to just toss them out and change the whole method of using the transfer station versus going in and researching, why aren't we being charged properly? Why aren't we going in and finding out why we're being overcharged, and, you know, maybe be proactive about lowering our costs as opposed to just omitting or eliminating those trucks from our transfer station, which then, and I think I said it that night, has to raise our prices. There's no way you can eliminate services, which is what we did. We dropped off services. There were some people that were using commercial trucks to bring our trash to the dump instead of bringing it ourselves, so we were paying a fee for that. But once you cut that service out, you're lowering services, you're increasing costs to the residents. So I wanted to second what Justin is saying, is to at least put it back to where it was and investigate and see what other towns are doing to weigh the material, to properly handle it, properly track it, and make it an equitable solution. And I hear what they're saying about the equity of this, is that the folks who are using those services are now being charged more, whereas the folks who are bringing their trash to the transfer station are getting a free service that we're all paying for. And it needs to be refloated and reconsidered. And I would like to put that back on.
Anybody else? So there was a lot of, I want to remind the board that there was no, as Justin had said, we were told that it wouldn't be an impact. That included reaching out to Heritage Village and talking with them and being told it wouldn't be an impact. There's also, just for the record, there is here communications between between John Deal on your personal emails and Justin and Betty on your personal emails communicating with town officials. First, I would say, please use your own protection. Use your town emails for these communications, because you're opening yourself up for FOI. This whole thing could be FOI'd. Your entire personal emails could be FOI'd now because of this, just so you know. It's not good practice, so just to keep all of our board, not just you, but all of us, careful about that communication. But it was to Chuck Liddy, Fadwa Nijami, Economic Development Director, Michael Carrington, who is head of the Democratic Town Committee, which I find odd, and some others. And John, what you said, I followed up with Dan Drew, COO of Heritage Village. The village has several years left on a hauling contract, and there is no connection to using Southbury's transfer station in the cost that he is aware of. He does not see a negative effect with the proposed change. He did comment that he thought it was odd that the town does not upgrade the facility at a scale and become more efficient while adding a cost center to be paid for the services. So you were under the impression also that communicating with Dan Drew of Heritage Village that this wouldn't be an impact. That's what we were led to believe by your statements, by Dan Drew, and why we made this decision. We also did the same thing that this lady commented on, researching whether our citizens in general were getting any discount on the market price for garbage hauling. We did reach out, and what we found was there was no discounts. Garbage is also going up relatively, with today's economy going up 20% or more. And I don't think it has anything to do just here with the hauling. we discussed a lot of things. So I think we can discuss it, but I don't think we can at any point take an ordinance that we just passed, all of us, it's in the minutes, and just throw it out and go back to because it would require votes and a number of things. But I think we certainly can sit down and get a group together to discuss how we might be able to how could we get to where we could charge? We have the issue with the transfer station, with it being built on a landfill, which is not stable. We have an issue with we have an issue with the lack of being able to put a septic in for a proper building and all the things, because it's been like that. I want to remind the board that I'm currently doing a study of Exit 15. We're waiting for the leaves to clear so that they can finish the wetlands mapping, and that's the first step, is the wetlands and the setbacks, and then see what we have for room over there. I've recognized the need for a properly designed transfer station for the next 30 years. We know that recycling is going to become bigger. I know that with the food waste, my family has actively, with our farm and with the chickens and everything else that goes along with it, we've eliminated a lot of the food waste that goes through our garbage. And I have noticed, I don't think we have half of the bags of garbage we used to. So taking that into consideration, I recognized, and I think that's part of the ARPA money, that I think there's $50,000 to do this study. One, what could we do with there? Number two, if we want to do a transfer station and do it correctly, where can we put it and what will fit and what will work? I think in the long run, over years, we could probably save substantially more money in having a properly designed transfer station, including dealing with garbage or household waste like food waste. We're also looking, part of the concept here of stopping the trucks from coming in was to move along the recycling and also doing the food waste as part of Sustainable Southbury. That's kind of where it's all started. And what kind of room do we have without having those commercial trucks coming in? I also was made aware, this is hearsay, but supposedly what we ran, I've heard has been happening, that the haulers were picking up more than just garbage at the village. They were taking some solid waste, bulky waste also, because, hey, throw it in the truck, what difference does it make? It's not costing us anything to dump it. And they have said, well, we're not going to take that anymore. So I think we need to understand that there's a little more in depth here to really look at this, what they were doing, what they weren't doing, and what we can do. But certainly we can discuss, do we charge per truck that comes in? Let's say it's a 4-ton truck, 4 tons, that's the tipping cost. You as a hauler are going to have to pay the 4 tons to tip it, because we're going to have to pay 4 tons to get rid of it. I think we need to sit and down and discuss that, how that might happen. It's more complex than simple math here to make this. Again, if we go back to allowing commercial haulers in, does that mean that the recycling program suffers? And I think that's a bad direction to go in as far as recycling goes. I know whatever you think of it, we all know that separation of garbage from our glass and our plastic and our paper and our cardboard, food waste, is going to be the only way we're going to be able to tackle what's coming. And again, maybe the whole answer here is, once we know what can happen with Exit 15, is there a way, that would be the first piece, would be a transfer station properly designed for the next 30 years. So that would have to enter in the conversation.
Whatever happened to the training school? I know you mentioned you were going to find out what the impact would be on them. Has there been an impact?
Sorry, the impact?
the training school?
Right now, that is, they're residential, and, you know, we have to get a opinion from the town attorney whether that's commercial. They don't charge for pickup, they don't charge to run it, and also, their garbage is constantly decreasing because of attrition. Once the attrition is gone, it's fewer and fewer and fewer. So it's a minimal amount that's coming. And, you know, there is some, I'm not at liberty to say at this meeting. I will say something at the next meeting. It's not ready yet. There are some things that the state is looking, I remind you, Pierce Hollow Village is one of them. There's some things that they're doing with us that is a benefit to the town. And they also, their residents have no choice, and there's nothing they can do. So it's not a charge to the residents, it's not a charge to anybody, and it's a facility, so it's not that,
Agency.
right. All right, anything else, John?
So, just to follow up on that question, though, so when we voted for this on the 16th of June, you'd mentioned that you were going to talk to your attorney, weigh in, and determine where Southbury Training School was going to be hauling their trash to. So you're saying that Southbury Training Center is bringing their trash to the transfer station still?
They are, yeah. They are
Because they're
not a
considered-
commercial hauler.
So-
They are, the training school is a state facility of residents who have no ability to do that, and they also do not charge for the service. There's no charge to the residents. It's part of their operation. And again, their garbage is constantly being reduced through attrition. It's just a matter of time before it goes away.
So there were exceptions made for residential trash to be brought in bulk to the transfer station?
At this point, they are not being charged. They're not being charged for the residential hauling. They're not being charged as an institution, and it's a state, and again, their trash is diminishing every day. It's through attrition.
It's a state truck.
What's that?
It's a state truck.
Right, there's a state truck, and right now,
Go by my house.
yeah, and then right now, they're running pickups. So
the
it's just.
State is picking up residential trash in a commercial truck and bringing it to the transfer station?
They're not charging their people for that. They're hauling.
No, we're all paying for it.
They're-
It's the state
The whole
truck.
state of
Sure.
Connecticut, right.
Point of order, can we please?
Yeah.
Sure.
So we can get on, we'll have discussions, we can meet. I don't know how you want to do that. And, I mean, it would be good to get the new Public Works Director in, so that, back up to speed on all this, so we can get some work from them. Justin, if you want to work with that.
Sure.
But let's, all right?
On that point, with new Public Works Director, that was one of the thoughts I had coming into this meeting, is I think we should get sort of his insight on. My apologies. Can you hear me? I think we should get the new Public Works Director on board and get his thoughts on it, because one of the, there were a number of things that were discussed when we passed this ordinance, and one of it was logistics and operations. It wasn't all just money. Part of it was the operational impact on the facility of the commercial haulers and how it impacts the residents coming and shuts down the facility for periods of time and things like that, and the impact on the compactor and those sorts of things. So I think as we're reviewing this, and I'm in favor of having a working group coming together and trying to come up with a solution to this issue, I think we need to look at it globally and understand all of the various impacts. Another data point that I was thinking of as I'm sitting here and I'm hearing all this about the increases is another thing we were told when the ordinance passed, was that there would be increases coming as a general matter, just because the cost of hauling trash and tipping is going up. And we know that as members of this body, each budget season, we deal with this line item in the budget. year after year, and we try and find solutions and savings and what we can do about it, because those tipping fees keep going up. So I'd be interested in what increases the commercial haulers have made to other towns in addition to the increases that are coming here, because that sort of has to be backed out of the analysis. You know, I know my fees before all of this, before this ordinance, went up every year. So there's some sort of normal increase and some increases that were anticipated that I think we need to know sort of what that number is, and whether, you know, other towns are also seeing increases, and then whether ours are more dramatic because of this change, and what that delta is and how that all sort of fits together. So I think, I don't think it's enough just to say there's an increase. I think we need to understand sort of the global situation, and then work together to try and find solutions. I'd certainly, if there was a way, a way that doesn't impact the operations, and I think there's some ways to do that, but allows us to charge commercial haulers, I think that's something that should be explored. So,
Again, we're looking at, what I'm hearing, numbers out there is, I know one particular condominium operation in Southbury that they actually doubled their fee, which is bizarre. But it was doubled from, I want to say 12 or 13 to like 26. 26 is pretty amazing given what it is. But I'm hearing in the neighborhood of 20%. And on a $400,000 budget item of hauling going 20%, that's $80,000. So I don't know what what the hauling is for Heritage Village at this time, but it's not unheard of to get, just because of the increase, because of the CPI and the cost of fuel and inflation, there could be a 20% adjustment that's across the board norm. And if it's a $500,000 hauling, that's $100,000. So this is going to impact even our own town when we go to the budget line items. If it's going to be, if that is expected, and that's what we're going to see across the board, could be 20%. We'll have to look into that.
So, and that's all, appreciate that. The one comment, like even going back to that June timeframe when we were originally looking at this and the letter and just kind of talking amongst ourselves, which might be hearsay, I think what it basically said was like, well, we have a 3-year contract. Could it change? We're kind of locked in, not knowing. But soon after, we know. We know the price has gone up. We know. We also then came in and talked to you and others to see what we could do. You asked us for, or I shouldn't say us, you asked Heritage Village for a letter that if we did go back to where we were and enable the trucks to go to the town dump, would that save that additional cost that the village was going to be paying for taking trash elsewhere? And they did secure that letter, and I'm pretty sure they sent it to you, and they copied us on it.
They did. The letter does not say that they would not raise the rates. I have the letter. The letter, you must have the letter, John.
Mm-hmm.
You want to read the letter?
If you had it with you, you could. I mean,
Right there. Under our current agreement, the cost for the collection services is fixed for the term with no annual increases.
That's the part I'm confused about, is that I keep hearing from residents that their cost to dispose of garbage went up. And we have their hauler saying it didn't. So which is it?
Again, I've asked to see the contract, and they don't want to show us the contract. So I would ask, as part of the discussion, is can we see the contract and what it is? I mean, if you expect us to cooperate and work with them, I think this board has to be able to see the contract. And if it's, if they want an NDA signed that it wouldn't be made public, that's okay. There's ways around all that, but there's statements coming out, and we don't know the facts. But again, under our current agreement, the cost of the collection services is fixed for the term with no annual increases. I don't know what the terms of the contract are or how long they are.
So,
I don't know, I
and-
don't know.
Right, so I agree there's a lot of open questions, a lot of.
So we'll have to get together and,
And we did have a meeting, I think it was a little over a month ago, and I think what Justin's suggesting, and we're all kind of in agreement here, so I'm assuming it's just move forward. in
we'll
the
get a
proper-
working group together.
Is to get Dan and Jerry back, get together as a group, and start plotting a course to,
I'll reach out to Dan, to Jerry Leventhal and see, and I'll reach out to some, and again, I, like I said, I think we need to get our Public Works Director in place so that they understand because we don't want to impact back into the operation either.
I totally agree that we should get a new Public Works Director involved ASAP. But the reality is, there's basically two companies we're talking about. So if Eric is USA Waste's guy, we should figure out who the Eric is over at the other company and get him in here, or get him into the working group and wrestle with him.
Okay.
because in context, the way I read this letter with the email that was delivered with was that there was new charges coming, and that they would be, like this letter, gone back to where they were, as long as they could bring the trash here. And that's the way I heard it, so.
Well,
we'll
I
continue
know what
that
the letter
cycle.
says, is USA will, what I'm seeing is USA will not increase rates for waste or recycling if USA is able to dispose of the waste and recycling for Heritage Village at the transfer station at no charge. And again, we're also turning back here saying, well, how could we charge the commercial haulers? Well, that won't be a savings if they're charged to tip at our transfer station. It's a
And that all
wash.
has to be worked out, yeah.
So we've got to say, you know, again, when we did this, we had the information that this entire board was given and communications with Dan Drew, saying there would be no impact. That's what we saw, that's what we knew, and that's what we did.
And that's what we're seeing up there.
Correct. That's what we're seeing in that letter. So I don't know what to say, except we need to
So
put the
we'll
working
bring them
group.
back up and continue that conversation, because I think there's more data, more details that are,
Agreed.
yeah.
Agreed. We were all under the impression, there was nobody here doing anything, we were the same as you. Justin said it best, we were given this information. Dan Drew told us there was no increase.
Hey,
So there it is.
I think what he said that the, yeah.
Point of order. I
Point
don't
of
want to
order
have a
is-
meeting with
But
interruptions.
we need to get together with a group
Yeah.
and figure out what the story is, all right? So we'll put together the group, we'll get the new Public Works Director in and get him or her looking at and discussing the transfer station and options, all right?
I haven't had an opportunity to comment yet. I can't ignore that we've had two big issues in the last few months where our seniors have to come here and they're upset, and I feel for them tremendously because they should not be in this position and have this burden of stress. And in both of these instances, the administration at Heritage Village was aware of both of these discussions prior. And perhaps there needs to be a representative from Heritage Village's administration at all of our meetings, because they're on our agendas in advance. They're aware of these things happening in advance. And it seems to me that the residents are finding out about it as if it's new information. And in both instances, it is not. And I think we need to talk about that. Municipal government and the way municipal government works is not new to the administration. In fact, I would say it might be an expertise of the administration. So I think this is our meeting, and I just as a point of order, that this is not a discussion, while I'm happy the public's here, this is not an interaction with them. This is for us to have a conversation about how do we fix this going forward for the benefit of these seniors so this does not happen anymore, because this is a problem.
So we'll put the group together.
But I agree 100% with what Holly's saying. I think what maybe this has come down to is that Dan and Jerry did come and other people came to meet with a couple of us and haven't had any follow-up. They've also put in FOIA requests that we've all been copied on, asking Jeff for some additional information or copies of details that they haven't received. So I think this is them just saying, hey, we're here, we want to be understood and acknowledged, and please get back to our leadership.
So, as a point, these are conversations that are happening after ordinances are passed. And for folks who are truly experts in municipal government and have tremendous experience in municipal government, and I would think is part of the capacity and part of the value of being in the roles that they're in now, get here in advance. The fact that we've passed, these are both things that were discussed over the summer, these are things that were addressed over the summer, and these were items that were closed over the summer. We're dealing with them now in October and November and being asked to go retroactively. That's not how this process works, and it's not how the process works in any municipal government. There is a time, there is a place, and there's an appropriate course to get us the information so that we can vote on it appropriately. We haven't had that, and I would encourage the administration of Heritage Village to perhaps start to show up and be involved in our agendas and be part of public comment in the moment when it's relevant and not exciting people unfairly when it's too late. So.
Okay, let's move on with this. We'll put the group together and we will get our Public Works Director and get some information and see what we can do. All right?
Since the agenda item was broad as transfer station, I think I could ask this question. What is the status of the Public Works hiring process?
We're about to put the committee together, I think. Have you been reached out to, Justin?
Not yet, no.
Yeah, I think it's about to reach out to put the group together. The applications came in. We have, I think there's 6 or so, and we'll be putting the group together and getting the interview started for that probably next week, get it scheduled. I do know, I saw the email with the resumes sent to me of who it is that's closed. So we'll be moving forward with that, as we are with the Senior Services Director. We'll go over that in the notes. All right? Next up, First Selectmen's Report. I want to remind the board, November 10th, there is a little event for Shirley Thorson retirement during the day. I'd hope the board can make it. A lot of years of she has been through a lot of changes with our library. Hats off to her. I think one of the most, when you think about going to the brand-new library and what it took for her to go through that, that was a little beyond the normal.
Can we please ask for folks here to
Folks, can you, please, we need to conduct the meeting.
respect the meeting, please? Thank you.
There, you can go to the hall if you'd like. So, when you look back, it wasn't just a position where you were just not running the library, but that whole conversion to go to our library, she's deeply involved and there was a lot going on there. Also, I'm going to have a small group working on the PD. I would like to see, and I don't mean to spring this on you, but I think I volunteered you, Justin, right on camera, to put a small group together. I think it's appropriate. I would like to get John Michaels, yourself, Dan Colton, Chris Garillo, and Jason Bucksbaum and the idea is to put together what are we looking to get an informational gathering group. Top of my head, I'm thinking, and Chris Garillo is working on this, but he's just been out for a couple of days. Financials, departments before, after, historic, command structure, chiefs, what's the command structures look like? What did they evolve to? Those who recently organized, reasons, expectations, reality. Are you satisfied with what was expected? I mean, sometimes what you think you will get and what you really get. Is it really expectations? How has it made a difference attracting personnel, retention, and any pros and cons? The other concern I'd like to try to figure out is building requirements. And this will be needing to go, I think, to other PDs to see what the building requirements are. I've always expressed, like, should we have an idea of what our maximum number of personnel are going to be? I know the building's okay for what we have today, but if we build the town out completely in the next 20, 30 years, so we know we've pretty much built out, what's the number of personnel it can handle? I give you, for instance, we, going towards the detective, which we'll be announcing pretty soon. What if there's 2 detectives? Does it require 2 offices? Do we have 2 offices? What's the limitations of the building, or is it okay? If we do have our patrol officers, and if we have a detective or 2 detectives, if we have a CRO, SRO, what is that number that we would like to see if we could get there? Is the building capable of handling that number and making sure, because we can't just do this and then say, as I said before, we can't find out a year from after organizing saying, we need a $10 million building.
Newtown just built one for 6, so yeah, that is something that I think we have to understand very, very completely. I'll also say it's sort of nice for the first time in the almost 20 years that I've been volunteering with the town that I can actually speak and vote on matters related to the police now that my cousin is retired. So I'm happy to assist. I do remember well why the last effort under Bill Davis's administration got torpedoed. So having good, strong numbers, I think, is crucial. As a general matter, I support the concept of having our own police department. As we can see, we're having trouble filling our ranks and keeping them full. And it seems like this is probably the path forward to change that. But again, as you know, we got some research to do, some numbers to gather.
Well, I figured that we've historically have been through this. For whatever political or non-political purpose, whatever happened, there was a lot more.
Public safety should never be political.
Should not.
It's our highest charge.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, like, I'm hearing about grants and that we can get grants, and that's okay. But I'm the kind, that's fine. Show me the grants that this will.
There's startup cost and then there's annual ongoing. That's what we have to.
Right. And that's where John Michaels and you understand. We have to make sure that, and I also want to say, you know, I've also qualified this a little bit. Not knowing if it's going to cost more, but let's be honest, public safety costs money. And the question is, what's the value of what you've gotten? Southbury's always been willing to, as I'm bringing forward with the pool, is this MRTA system, though costing more money, be less expensive on the maintenance side over the next 30 or 40 years. If we see the value of putting a bridge in versus a culvert, because we get 100 years on a bridge and 50 on a culvert, our ancestors, proudly, yours and mine, have always okayed that type of thinking. And you and I, we both know that that's the value to the town that they're seeing now in our public works trucks being in good shape. We don't go looking and seeing what we can fit into a bond. We keep our infrastructure from the roofs on our buildings to the police cars, not the first selectman's car. But I think that's the concept of gathering this information. So if, I'll ask the board if Justin and Jason could be on that group.
And I'll just add, I think this is an important discussion to be having at this point in time, especially with a lot of things going on with policing and a lot of discussions that have been had in town. I think it's a good time. I think it's the right time to have it, and I think it needs to be done right and thoroughly. I see this sort of initial group as being an informal fact finder to present to this body a more formalized process to move forward on the discussion, which is going to have to be a thorough, substantive, public discussion and analysis, the pros, cons, finances, building, everything involved in it, because though the last time this was discussed was before my time in town. I think I moved here right after that referendum. I'm aware of a lot of the history. People still talk about it, and I think it really needs to be fully vetted and evaluated and presented to the public in a coherent way, if that ends up being the recommendation to move forward in that direction.
I do have, Betsy is working on pulling some of this. Unfortunately, she started to look, and it's like, it's not all categorized clearly, so she may need another pair of glasses, because she has to read a lot of documents that are not clearly marked, unfortunately, and I know she'll give it her all to at least have some of the background for the rest of the board to understand a little bit about what happened before. But certainly, things are different at the state police level than they were back then. And
We used to pay half of the trooper. Now we pay 100%.
it's not necessarily just the percentage you're paying, but,
The amount of overtime.
and the number of troopers is fewer, and we don't know if, I honestly don't know if the retention or not retention, we've been doing pretty well, but again, they're all struggling right now. I mean, that's not unique to the Southbury Police Department, the Newtown Police Department, state police, nor any of them.
Nationwide.
We even have, to be quite honest with you, there are police officers from New York City who've expressed interest in coming here because they just said, they're young, I've got to get out of Brooklyn. I have to go someplace where it's safer. So, it's not unique to Southbury, and what can we do to keep up with all of it, and how we have to do? So I think if you two gentlemen would be happy to, it'll be a lot of work. I mean, Justin, it is going to be a lot of work, and it's going to require some road trips and some discussions with departments, chiefs, and probably other CEOs, because there may be two different, the chief may say, this is great. And the town mayor or first select person may say, not so good. I don't know, but we need to look at, it's going to take quite a bit of work to get that put together. All right? So I'll count on you two. The other thing I have tonight, I want to remind everybody, Home of the Brave, the 85th anniversary, is going on next weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I intend to be, hopefully, family obligations being what they are for everybody, I hope to make at least part of each event as representing the board and the people of Southbury to this. I will be going to the dinner if there's, I don't know if anybody else has signed up. You get are you going?
I can't go because it's my birthday weekend and my wife already had something planned. But my office is a sponsor, my parents are going, Dr. Betty's going.
Are they?
So
Are they getting bracelets?
I haven't gotten those yet, but I will make sure that we do. Sure.
Make sure, see me for some more if they're going. We'd like to see them.
I see Ed's here, and I haven't gotten any bracelets, so.
Ed, are you here? I'm
So,
trying,
bye.
Ed.
You want one?
I know Jason's firm has sponsored also, so we can do, am I supposed to hand these out, Ed? Only if they register. Well, yeah, there we go. Well, we're gonna let all the selectmen advertising anyway, so where's yours? No blue coat and you get a bracelet, your whole firm and you didn't get a bracelet, look, he's gonna get a couple.
I'm taking my bracelets.
Ed, I'm doing is what, almost. I know it. Everybody gets a prize. Okay. Reports from liaisons. Oh, is there any questions for me? Okay, I feel good. Selectman Betty, how are you?
Economic development is 2 weeks out. Strategic planning is next week. IPOC is meeting, I think it's in December. The other thing I've been working on is the 350th anniversary parties for next year. As I've mentioned before, they're planning a year's worth of events, basically something every month. There's another meeting next week on that. There's some really cool stuff that's brewing that will start as early as January, February. Sort of a winter festival is being tossed out there with participation from some of the local hotels, and it looks like it's going to be really cool. You know, not a lot of cost to the town, a lot of sponsorship opportunities for businesses and whatnot, but it should be some really good celebration, community building stuff. It's going to be remarkable. So we've got a lot of the right people working on it, and they're making good progress. That's it.
Jason?
Library Board meets next week. You already mentioned Shirley Thorson's retirement next Thursday afternoon. And I'll just mention today, we started the interview process for Shirley Thorson's replacement, which the process will probably conclude next week. LEPC meets in a couple weeks, and EMS also meets at some point in November.
John?
So the Parks and Recreation met last Thursday. I guess they had a scarecrow contest that they decided a winner on and notifying them. They are working on their budget conversations and income reports and putting together a template so that leading into the budget season. Winter rec and travel basketball are starting up, and winter swim lessons are open. And new recreation software is on track to go live in December. So they got some work going on there. Park facilities, some upcoming work. The community house bathrooms, quotes pending. I know they spent a little bit of time going through there and taking a look at the condition, the ability to use those spaces. Right now, there's just a porta-john out there, so they're putting together some budgets to basically restore those units. Boat launch and floating dock was acquired and will be installed in the spring. Pickleball courts, so we had the village loves to play pickleball up there. And it was approved in this, in our minutes of tonight, is the placement was approved by planning. Their notes as of Thursday were just commenting that it was being reviewed. But pickleball courts being placed at the community house park. So that's pretty exciting down there. Now, let's see what else was on here that was, and they've been working on this for a couple of months now, is putting together basically an overview of maintenance standards so that they can work with the buildings and grounds a little tighter and basically have a list of what's expected so that as even Michael or others walk through the parks, they can make little cleaner lists and go-tos as far as what's expected, what they're looking at, and everybody can be on the same page. So they're making some pretty good headway with that. The Conservation Commission met also on Thursday. Let's see, they were working on, and they've been working on this for a while at Bennett Park, as a stabilization along the riverfront. They'd actually received some permits and approvals to move ahead and start working on some of that stabilization, but then learned that the Pomperaug River watershed had determined that it might need approval from the Army Corps of Engineers. And whether it's approval or just a pass and an approval that it's okay to do the work without a formal review is what they're looking at now. So they're working at taking a look at how large, how much length of riverbed they can, or river bank that they can stabilize and stay within, I guess, what would be considered a small project and not need a whole workup from the Army Corps of Engineers. So they're continuing with that work. They worked on a couple of parks, Jeannie Pierce and which was the Little York Park. Both have new kiosks, and the boardwalks at Janie Pierce have all been pretty much maintained and monitored, and their treatment that they did early in the spring has held up pretty good. So all of this is coming down to some increased trail usage and the parks being used pretty well in the conservation areas. They also acknowledge taking, I guess you'd call it responsibility of the Transylvania Brook Estates that we applied to them last time we met. So they basically have walked that a couple times and just figuring out what they can do to maintain a nice, clean, open environment. And then the, last but not least, the Community Relations Task Force, unfortunately, with an illness, a funeral, and then we had other obligations, had to be postponed. So that meeting was put off.
Greg?
All right, Senior Services Commission and Energy Task Force meet the next Tuesday and Wednesday before our next meeting, so I'll have an update then. And IT Steering meets again in January, so I will have an update then. That's all I have.
I think,
Oh, I should say, right, we've started to go through the process of interviewing for Senior Services Director. So that is underway, and look forward to finding out who our new director is going to be.
okay. And the Energy Task Force, I think we're, I recently talked, we met with Chuck Liddy. We're just, again, get the new director on so we can discuss what steps we're going to take there. So we'll be held back a little bit, but that's what we're going to do. All right. Motion to adjourn. No. Oh.
I've been quiet.
I think my dinner's ready. That's one.
All good.
Sorry, I apologize.
It's okay, I was hiding behind you. Region 15 had a board meeting on October 24th. The focus of this meeting was the goals of the 2022-2023 school year. Each of the principals from each of the schools came out to address the board and explain how they're working towards these goals. And the goals are both data-driven based on test scores and academic performance, but then there's also goals that are focused on community involvement and how attached the student is to their learning environment and their school in particular. Studies have shown that kids are more successful across the board, better citizens, better academics when they feel connected to their schools. So they talked a lot about the different programs in the schools. Rochambeau has Rochambeau Pride, Gainfield has Tracks, and how those kids are being taught to excel in these certain areas that help them to connect to the school and why it's important to drive productive behaviors and, different things that they can be doing. Are they cleaning up after themselves in the cafeteria? Just those little things that kids need to start young, and then that translates into being good stewards later in high school. It was really interesting to watch, and I think this was a really unique board meeting, very unusual compared to most of the business that's carried out through the remainder of the rest of the year. If there's any parents watching at home that have kids in the district, hop into that YouTube video and watch your principal talk about what's going on in the school. For me, my daughter's in Gainfield, it made a lot more sense when they started talking about differentiated learning and how they're being taught in kindergarten to break out into small groups and why they're doing that. It allows that teacher to kind of go to some of the groups and give the right level of education to that smaller group. And those kids have already learned in kindergarten what the expectation is of them when they break into smaller groups, and it allows for a more tailored experience for the teacher to get into smaller groups and teach at that level. So if they say, okay, everybody take out your books and do this, or it's writing time, they kind of break out and do that. And that it's interesting that this is I learned this from this meeting, that this is a culture that's being set in kindergarten and reinforced every grade level all the way through high school. It's a very learned behavior, and it allows for substitute teachers to be more effective, because when they come in, they've kind of got these basic commands, and the kids have learned since kindergarten what to do so that they have a better experience when they have, a substitute for the day or whatever it is. So really just an extraordinary Board of Ed meeting was the 24th. So if parents have kids in the district hop on and learn a little bit from the principal about what they're doing and the why behind it. Because when you talk to your kids back home, you can kind of help reinforce some of those values.
Great. Hats off to the school system and what they're doing. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.